When America catches a cold, Black America catches a fever. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Roots Matter, the show that talks about news and politics from a skeptical, humanist, secular point of view that happens to be hosted by a Black woman, such as I. My name is Cynthia, and I think that we should just go ahead and get into it because I have a story for you. So let me just go ahead and get my shared screen up. You know how we do. Okay. So, lovelies, this is actually a story from Shine My Crown, and it's entitled Black Federal Workers Face Job Losses Uncertainty Under Trump, but Shutdown Made It Worse. It was traumatizing by Guy NY, published November 13th, 2025. Okay, so let me just go ahead and start to share. So, this article from Shine My Crown reveals a troubling fallout from the government shutdown. Black federal workers who've long counted on civil service for economic stability are now bearing deep wounds. Thousands have been laid off or forced into administrative limbo under Trump's reduction in force policies. For people like Denise Joseph, who spent nearly a decade in federal service, losing her job felt like betrayal. I plan to retire there. What's wrong? Many say the 43-day shutdown made things exponentially worse. Longtime employees like Bobby Boyd described the ordeal as traumatizing. Nina Allen, once an executive coach at the Department of Education, had to reinvent her career at 50, knowing her pension and lifetime earnings would take a hit. Economists warn these aren't just short term job losses. They may widen racial inequality and erode the very ladder that helped build the Black middle class. This is a failure, not just of policy, but of humanity. A system claiming to serve the people is actively undermining one of the most vulnerable pillars. Because, y'all, I got thoughts, as always. So, one of the things that's very alarming since 45, now 47, has taken office is that you had a large cut in the federal workforce. And the federal workforce is overrepresented by African Americans. I believe the last time that I checked, the post office alone was roughly 30% African American. The armed forces, roughly the same. And you also have federal workers who are predominantly African American within that 20 to 30%, even though African Americans in itself make up about 13% of the population. Why is that? Well, from the time that we got the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which is part of the 14th Amendment, this was a way to be able to give African Americans that were coming out of slavery the ability to negotiate contracts, whether they were doing employment or whether they were in business for themselves. And a lot of times, because the private sector really wasn't hiring Black folk like that, unless they wanted them to go back to sharecropping or being tied to the land like they were back in the antebellum South, then an overrepresentation of Black folk were hired by the federal government. We saw this through the Freedmen's Bureau that unfortunately was defunct about, I would say, like less than 7 years after its inception. And we also saw an effort, fast forwarding, if we look at the 60s, with the Brown versus the Board of Education, and then the signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Title VII and Title IX going into place. The biggest entity that was really hiring Black people was the federal government, which actually helped create a Black middle class. Was it on par with white middle class and white middle America? Absolutely not. Because we still had the ills that we suffered economically and socially through policies that were happened to go through during Jim Crow and even spread to the North. We still have very much so representing the redlining that happened in northern cities just as much as it happened in the South. Now, what is that? Why does that matter? It matters now because often when Black people were able to get these particular jobs with the federal government, they were able to stay there, build some type of nest egg, send their kids to school, and be able to retire from that. But now that has been completely upended by this administration. When you end DEI programs, when you end ways for representation to show up, when you even enforce the putting of the names of Confederate soldiers back on ships and their statues going up, and then purposely removing Black people who served in the armed forces, like in World War II, from the Smithsonian, from federal gravesites, from even history of itself within our education system. This is a total overt way to erase an entire people. So a lot of times I get this whole thing, especially from, some more conservative leaving Black people. Why should we care what he does? Why should we care about what this administration does? Because what happens is the policies that this administration conceives, the policies that this administration conceives happen to overly disrupt the lives of us. We already had a 90% wealth grab between African Americans and white folk. It's even larger now. Even though that income does not count for wealth, assets do. But you still need an income to obtain the assets. If that income is gone, what do you do? What do you do? And all the time, Black folk have been heard for centuries that you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, even though we've been doing that since we stepped foot on the soil of the Americas. Not only were we pulling up our bootstraps, we were pulling up the countries as well. You see this entire nation? We built it. We did. My ancestors did. African Americans who come from chattel slavery, we built the country. That is not an assault on anybody else. But the foundation of what we know as an economic superpower came from slavery. And even when you look at the Capitol alone, the White House, the Capitol building, those things were built by slaves. We built railroads. We contributed to the infrastructure of this nation. And we were also punished for being in this nation, even though we're not the immigrants that people think that we are, because we didn't come here by choice. My ancestors did not come here by choice. On my mother's side, yes. On my father's side, absolutely not. So here we are, once again, catching the flu from policies that are coming from the top, from a person who doesn't give a damn about African Americans, and why some of these people who happen to look like me are holding water for him, I don't know. Because as another YouTuber I used to listen to would say, white supremacy always breaks its tools. And guess what? We are showing and seeing another example of our people being broken. And on that note, that's all I have for you all today. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, comment, let me know what you think. Am I missing something? Let's have that discussion in the comment section below. And remember, dear viewer, at the end of the day, the roots matter. Take care.